Hey guys, Kevin here with Victory 4x4. Today I'm going to show you how to install our rear window MOLLE panels in a second Gen Sequoia. Okay, so to get started, you can come back here and remove this clip. So for this, you simply grab the outside of it and pull out. And that's kind of a multi-piece clip, so once that releases, going just a little further, grab the bottom, and that entire assembly will pull out of that hole. Once you have that removed, you got a couple screws you need to get to. One's right here, easily accessible, but the others are up here behind these plastic covers. So for those, you can take a flat blade screwdriver and just get in behind that plastic, and those will pop out of the way. For this bottom one, I'm just going to use this 90-degree flat blade. It just makes it a little bit easier to access it since that's down kind of tight to this cup holder area. And then again, back to the flat blade screwdriver for this front one. Now with all those exposed, you can get a 10mm socket, whether it's on a ratchet or an impact, doesn't matter. And you can take all 4 of those bolts out. Then you can just set those aside. Okay, so next you're going to need to come back here and essentially remove this top portion, and then down here you're just going to need to pull the bottom out so that you can just kind of pull that away from the body and access in behind there. So to do that, we're going to come back here, and just to be able to grab an edge, it's going to make it a little bit easier to just partially remove this door seal. That way you can get your hand behind here and start pulling some of these clips loose. You can kind of do the same thing up toward the front here and just work your way forward. Once you have it far enough out, these 2 pieces will actually separate, and then you can pull the upper portion all the way out and just kind of let it rest down here on the floor. All right, and then over here you can see on the driver's side, the one difference is this hatch button. So with that, has a harness that runs up behind here. It's just kind of a little push button clip, so you just push that tab down and slide it out of this connector when you're removing this panel. Once you have that done, coming up here to the front, you're going to need to fold the seat down and then essentially do the same thing with this panel. Now again, to grab an edge, it may be easier to pop that door open, but I'm going to give it a shot here. And that should give us the access we need there. All right, the next thing you're gonna need to do is remove this upper plastic portion in here by the window. That's just gonna be held in with 4 plastic clips. So just starting at one end, kind of grab a hold of that, get a firm grip on it. See, I got 2 there now, and just kind of working across it. Pull down with some nice even pressure, and those should all pop out. And then you can remove that entire section. Now that you have this plastic portion removed, the next step is going to be to remove these 2 plastic clips from the center section, and those simply pull straight out. And then once you have those out of the way, using those holes as a guide, you're going to drill down through this plastic portion into the outside here, or essentially what will be the interior of the vehicle. So to start that, I'm just going to kind of use like a 1/4-inch drill bit here as a pilot hole, and then just kind of making sure you're straight in line with that hole. You go ahead and drill all the way through it like so. Now you can do this outside of your vehicle if you don't want to make a mess in here. I went ahead and laid down a blanket just so I can kind of catch all that and pull it back out with me when I'm done. And now that you have those pilot holes drilled, you'll come back from this side and then drilling back the other direction, make a 1/2-inch hole to fit the provided spacers. Now for that, I'm just going to use a step drill. You can also use a 1/2-inch drill bit if you have one. And then just make sure that that spacer fits through your hole and that you don't need to open it up any further. Looks like I got just a little more work to do. All right, now one thing worth noting here, part of the reason we had you drill through this way and then back in from the other side is so that when you install this spacer, it doesn't pass all the way through this plastic portion. Now with your plastic cover panel prepped, you can set that aside for the moment, and then using the provided 23/64 drill bit, you can open up these two center clip holes to accommodate our rivet nut inserts. Now these are only slightly larger than the drill bit we provide, so it may be possible and even better for you to run the drill in reverse so that it doesn't catch and pull through. Now in your bolt pack, you should receive everything you need to build a rivet nut install tool. So for starters, you're going to take the long bolt we provide and install a washer, and then the tall hex nut, another washer, and then using this star washer, you can slide that on and then install one of the nut inserts. Now once you have this entire assembly together, you're ready to install this nut insert into the vehicle. All right, so in order to install this into the vehicle, you simply need to insert the nut end into the hole, and then using a 1/2 inch wrench, you can hold that tall hex nut. And then with a 10mm socket, we're gonna be doing this one here on a drill. And this drill actually has several settings on it, so we've dialed it back a little bit from its full power so that it hopefully stops and basically ratchets before it does any damage to the threads in these nut inserts. Now once you've noticed that's compressed down against the metal, you don't need to put any additional force to it. Just go ahead and back your drill out and remove that entire tool assembly. If you don't have a lot of experience with these, or if you're concerned you might damage it, because this is a fairly small 6mm thread, you can easily do this with your wrench as well as just a small ratchet and a socket. That way you get just a little bit better feel for when that tightens down against the metal up there. Okay, so now to install your upper mounts for your MOLLE panel, essentially what you're going to do is using the long button heads in your bolt pack along with these small angled brackets. You can place that button head through there, and then using one of those provided spacers on top, it'll go into these holes and then into those nut inserts you just installed, just like that. So we'll reinstall this plastic panel and then get both of those in. All right, once you have both of those started, you'll just want to set them up kind of parallel to this window surface, and then using a 5mm Allen, you can tighten them in place. The next step here is going to be to remove the sunshade from this plastic panel. So to do that, we went ahead and removed the other side so you could get a better look at it. This is going to be held in place with 5 Torx head fasteners, and to get those out, you're going to need a T20 Torx bit. Now we found this to be much easier if you have something like this where you have it on a Torx socket and a small ratchet rather than something like a long handled screwdriver style. And basically all you need to do here is you'll pull this panel out so that you can access behind it, and then kind of just by feel you can get behind there and work this ratchet and see to get those out. Otherwise you would have to remove this entire plastic portion. All right, now one thing worth mentioning here too is when you're taking these out, these are going to be a very small screw, so try and hold them tight or at least have a hand underneath them from behind here so that when they come out, they don't fall down and rattle around in there for the foreseeable future. You can kind of see there how small that is. Now that you have all those screws removed, you'll just need to make sure that this panel is loose enough up here that you can slide this back far enough and then lift it straight up out of there. And you can just set that aside. Those will be discarded. Now we understand these aren't in the most convenient spot, especially here on the passenger side where you have a big air conditioning and heat duct that runs alongside there. So what we did here, and what we might recommend you guys do, is we actually took a little bit of electrical tape and kind of wrapped the end of this wrench with the nut inside of it. And that way the tape kind of just grabs this edge and holds that nut in place so that you can fish it up behind there and get your bolt started from the outside. Now for this back bracket, you're going to be using the shorter of the two bottom brackets. And the way this will install is with this flange facing out and up so that you have access to this slot. And then for the bottom mounting hole, you'll use this hex head bolt from your kit. Now as you can see back here, there's two holes close to where we're going to be mounting this bracket. We're going to be using the front hole as our mounting location. Now once you have your nut in place behind there, simply install that bracket, again using that hex bolt, and start threading it in. Now with this bracket in place, you can line it up, making sure that the surface is parallel to your plastic panel, and then get behind here with a box end wrench and tighten it in place. All right, now on the front mount, again, making sure that this flange with the slot in it faces out and up. This will simply slide right behind here and then use this factory mounting hole and the factory bolt that you removed from there earlier. Now over here on the driver's side, when you're installing this lower front mounting bracket, you want to be careful of this red line that you can see here. This runs essentially right through this area behind this plastic panel. And when you're installing our bracket, you need to make sure that it gets behind that line so that it doesn't pinch that red line against the outer body panel when you install it. Now for this one, you can leave this loose for now. That way when you go to install the panel, since you have access to this, that gives you just a little bit of wiggle room before you tighten everything down. You can reinstall all this plastic and then we'll get the MOLLE panel installed. All right, on any of these panels, once you have all of the clips installed, don't forget to go back and reinstall any bolts you removed earlier as well. Now at this point, you're ready to get this MOLLE panel installed. So to start, make sure this logo is down and toward the front of the vehicle. And then start by hanging it off of these top two mounts. Simply insert the bolt through there. And then since it's hanging loose, you can access the nut from the back side. And then leaving that a little bit loose, we'll come up here and do the same thing on the front. Bolt through this hole, and then nut from the back side coming from underneath. All right, now that you got both of those top bolts started, you'll come down here using the same 1/4 inch hardware. You can put that nut on the back side of the mounting bracket, push the panel up tight, and then insert that 1/4 inch button head bolt. And then get that one started as well. And we're just kind of leaving all these loose now until we get all four started, and then we'll tighten everything up. Now with all four of those started, take your 5/32 Allen, tighten everything down. All right, once you have everything tight here, you can go ahead and install the other side, and then you'll be all set. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to us, info@victory4x4.com, or give us a call, 269-459-8447.